Hello there to all of my Year 10 lovelies. This is a second video which is to help you with your hexagon sheet, and that's all the designs that then go on there. So that's your hexagons, that's the origami, that's your Stella Designs, and it's your Pacey designs. I'm just going to put this video together just to help you with those specific things. My face won't be on there all the time, which is probably a good thing, but I thought it's best to show you a load of feedback that I've been doing with your year so you can see the types of things that are really good practice from the students you've been giving in, and so you can see the types of next steps that I'm handing out. Please make sure that you are regularly emailing me with your work and updates, and I'll get through to you as soon as I possibly can do. Sometimes there might be a bit of a lag because of getting back to school, training, things like that. You guys will be heading in for your core subjects as well as of next week, so that'll be quite unusual. Unfortunately, wasn't put on the rota for Year 10 because it was deemed that there'll be too much paper involved and we won't be able to social distance properly and all of that sort of stuff, so it's a bit tricky. I am currently broadcasting from the very peak of technology. I'll put a little sort of image of my webcam setup right over here so you can see it. But apart from that, I'm going to stop rabbiting on now and I'm going to get into the rest of the video. Thank you for all of your help and support so far, and email me if you need anything. Thanks, guys. This next part of the video is going to be looking at the hexagon sheet, and specifically those 3 hexagon designs that you can see on the screen there that are then going to occupy that sheet. They don't have to go on as shown, but this is just a suggestion where you might put them. Different people put them in different places. It shows the exact things that you will need. One of the things can't be done until we get back in, and that's in the top left there, those auxiliary repeats. I can't do them until I get back in because I need a printer, but you can definitely be working on the hexagons, as I've said, the origami, and then also the Stella and Paisley designs. All of those different designs will all get added together to make your hexagon sheet. In terms of drawing, it's really essential that you push yourself on those 3 hexagon drawings. On the screen here you can see 3 amazing examples, and these are from this year, as well as some of the other examples that I'll be showing in the video that are from previous years. Absolutely fantastic, superb full use of space, no white space really anywhere unless it's the white in an object. The only next step that you could possibly suggest on here might be a little bit more opposite colour blending. You can already see evidence of tone in some places, but maybe that could be made more richer. So even in very, very good examples like this, there's always maybe that little bit of room to engineer that next step out of there just to push that grade even further. And directional lines as well, not forgetting about those. Absolutely fantastic in these 3 designs here. In this slide here, this was a feedback slide that I've just completed recently for one of the Year 10s, and this is showing 2 hexagons that were then sent to me over email. Now this student's got a very clear theme going in their work. You can see that there's honeycomb in both of these 2 hexagons, and it's really quite interesting how he's drawn little images around the outside as well. I've suggested that he maybe thinks about cutting those drawings off the outside, raising them onto cardboard possibly, and then adding them onto his hexagons. He could choose to do that if he wanted to, or he could use those drawings in the rest of his hexagon sheet anyway. The good thing about this slide, and why it's quite essential to show you, is the fact that there's a clear connection between the themes. You don't have to do that, sometimes it helps, but also one being very close up, showing that detail in one media, and one being further away and showing a different type of detail but still colour blending. The only one thing I've suggested that I'd like to see on here is like you can see in that bee's little bit of body there, I believe it's called the abdomen, I could be wrong, please don't tell me if I am. In that area there you can see that the colour blending is really vibrant. I'd like that to be extended in all of the space around the outside in those honeycomb areas. There's little bits of red and different things going on in there, but I'd like it to have the same detail as that close-up section there. That's the sort of thing I'd be after if this was your design. This is that same person's 3rd hexagon. A lot of things are working incredibly well on there that I put in green there on the screen. Really full use of space, great range in tones everywhere, and again directional lines are the key parts that make drawing more effective and elevate you up the grades from beyond having a basic pass to having a more stronger pass and a more higher quality grade. Again, there are drawings around the outside that could be added on, but the main next steps that I've suggested is that they put a little bit more variety in the honeycomb shapes, like they've done on the previous image that I've shown you with the different honeycomb details there. I've also put a few images there in the middle on the right that just show how you could maybe do that if this was you drawing it. And also maybe add a little bit more shadowing and a little bit more shading around the outside edges of objects. You can see a little bit along the bottom of the shell, tiny bit on the top there, but the other 2 floral designs there, the little flowers there, they could maybe do a toning around the outside edge just that fades out from that edge into the space. And aside from that and the detail in the hexagons, Absolutely fantastic bit of work there. This hexagon was a design that was sent into me. You can see the tiny like baby image there in the bottom left. That was what they started with, asking for a little bit of feedback, and this is the sheet that I sent back. This shows the types of things that I'd suggest that this person does and put in. Obviously you can pause the video and have a little look at that if you wanted to, but the key things are filling the space, making sure you get a variety of objects. If you look at the mountains in the bottom left image there, that first one, they don't have the same detail as in this one, as I've suggested, that and then happens there on the right hand side. And then the rest of the things that I've suggested are developments in tone. Don't just look for the very light and grey tones. Get those dark tones in your drawing. Get the fullest tonal range that you can. Everything from the very darkest tones to the very lightest tones is absolutely essential. This particular student, before they followed that advice, they moved on a little bit, which is great. I love to see people taking the initiative and thinking about what they can do. They got to this stage here that you can see on the screen there, and you'll notice that from the previous image there, that's very, very similar. But she changed it to have her own ideas, which is absolutely fine. We want to see that in GCSE. We don't just want to see you turning into a sheep and doing whatever you're told. These little points here that are on the screen are just explaining how else that could be developed. A lot of the time, again, I'm suggesting that you use tone, maybe look at things more realistically, and wherever you can do, think about filling the space. You've also got to watch out for those really strong, harsh outlines. They will sometimes make your drawing a bit cartoony and a bit simplistic. So if you can always tone away from those harsh outlines, you will really help. And that's what this next slide is helping you with as well. Just took an image from previous hexagon feedback and I've just put it here into a little help image there. So if you've got really strong outlines, or if you've got a bit of negative space and you've got an object nearby, don't just leave it blank or a solid colour. Think about ways you can tone away from the outside edge. That might be cross-hatching sort of a style. It might be the swirly type of tone there that you can see in the top right image and in the bottom there. So it's a matter of thinking about how you could then put in the tone that will make your drawing more effective. These next couple of images are from an absolutely blindingly fantastic couple of students' hexagons work that was done last year. Brilliant drawings, both of them. Really good points, carefully observed. Full use of space mostly. Accuracy of drawing is definitely great, and there's quite a lot of interest in how they've filled space. They've not just plonked any old thing on there the same size, they've changed the sizes, they've thought about the composition. Really sort of great to see that. Maybe as a next step, possibly the white background that's in some of these areas could have been slightly filled. And you'll see just on the example there, I'm just showing the original drawing that was made in the top right image there, and then it should hopefully fade into the original there. So you can just see that little bit of process and progress for what that student has followed. It's sometimes difficult to know how to fill your composition and what to do. The key thing is looking at examples, thinking about what types of things you could fill into that space. Here's just a little example slide for that first hexagon that I showed on the previous image. In this slide here, and this will be the last of the hexagons before we get into that origami, two more fantastic examples. They pretty much speak for themselves. Brilliant points here, both from two level 8 students. Obviously it's not just these hexagons, it's everything else as well, but you can see from the quality of what's going on here, and these were taken before they were then fully completed, following those next steps at the bottom there, just suggesting that maybe more biro textures be added to the top left one, just to give that slightly harsher, darker tone to break everything else up, and then the pencil tone becomes a mid-tone. And the one in the top right there, absolutely fantastic bit of work, brilliant sort of drawing, very sensitive, which is very good to see, great textures. They then just went on to put a little bit more darker tone in the background, which gave focus on the softer objects in the foreground. I've got a couple of images here, absolutely fantastic Origami Designs, not mentioning any names so I don't get into trouble on the old video there, but the bottom 3 images and the top right one there are all from students this year in year 10, and all I've suggested there in that top left is maybe just get yourself onto YouTube. I just typed in origami videos step by step and keep watching them. Don't expect to watch it once and be able to get it straight away. You have to sometimes start the video, pause it, get yourself in a position and keep going. It doesn't always have to be the most complex origami either. As this next slide will show you, colours and the changes in colour are quite complex from one part of origami to another, but sometimes the more simpler shapes can be just as effective. The key thing that I wanted to get across was that not all of these origami shapes are the same. You've got a good variety in there, and no matter how simplistic they are, try and get that variety in. All of these different origami shapes will go around the outsides of your hexagons on the hexagon sheet. So the more you can make, the more variety you can make, the better it would look once it's all dingly-dangly done. I was looking for around 30 pieces all in all, but if you can go for about 25 pieces where they are made a little bit more simplistically, and then really try and push yourself. Make 5 really complex bits of origami. Maybe not like this crazy one that's just zooming by on the screen now, but be thoughtful about what you do. Don't just do the more simplistic shapes. Challenge yourself with something a bit more tricky. The last part of this video is just going to go through the Frank Stella task. I'm going to use examples from students in the images here, but I just wanted to put the help sheet on the screen so you could have a little look and see the types of marks that Frank Stella uses. Very abstract artist, often combining very messy brushstrokes and messy marks and textures with more graphic and straight images. So they're quite abstract, unusual how he creates this variety of patterns. You can see from the images on the screen there, he uses a mixture of paint. He uses often quite big scales, and what I'm asking you to do is to take that style and put it into a series of designs and shapes. You could use the Frank Stella templates that I've sent you via email. Make sure you look at the help sheets, such as this one on the screen there, showing you some good examples of how someone's been a little bit more finer with the type of task that is being released there. These Frank Stella designs are a lot more intricate and there's more detail to be used, so you've got to bring your own personal quality and flair into it as well. This slide here is showing 2 designs from Year 10 this year. I've got one on the left there. Great idea to do it all on one big chunk of paper, but I definitely want to see more blended colours. You need to be making sure you're blending those opposites together, blending harmonious colours together, so you've got a bit more vibrancy, like the image there on the right. It could be that you add extra patterns in there. It doesn't always have to be colour blending, but you definitely need to make sure that you can squint at the image and still be able to see all of the work. If you're squinting it and you can't see it, then it definitely needs a lot more vibrancy. In the case of the one on the left there, it could be the fact where the image is photographed and then shapes could be cut out from copies to use back on that hexagon sheet, so you don't always have to cut up your originals. And the image on the left there, the point I was trying to make about this next step was great colour blending, great full use of space in the shapes, but maybe a bit more variety could be used. Maybe it could be more than just those graphic lines and graphic shapes that could creep it into the work. And if you look at this next design here, this perfectly sort of exemplifies that there. The one that's in the bottom right there that I say absolutely love, this one in particular, that's the type of thing that I would really love to see with these Frank Stella designs, where you're not just doing one type of pattern, you've got a variety. Some parts a bit more organised, some parts a bit more messy, some parts a bit more haphazard. The colour changes, that's the sort of thing I'm looking for. And in the top right and top left here, you can see where this student's gone one step further and they've personalised the work. I absolutely love this. I didn't stand behind them with a gun and say, you must look at this artist, you must do it. It was their personal idea to look at Basquiat, who is an American graffiti, amongst other things, artist that uses lots of symbolism and shapes in the work. Very abstract, very expressive. So they connect to Frank Stella extremely well. So what that student did was they used the Frank Stella shapes and the idea of those colours, but introduced those Basquiat types of shapes as well. And again, like the previous slide, you could make a series of designs there, like in the top right, that don't have to be the shape, but we could take copies of them and then cut out Frank Stella shapes from them. It should work really well. In this final Frank Stella image here, before I then just go on to the last bit about the Paisleys, you can see that this student has used paint. And again, sometimes paint can be a really good expressive media to use, as well as those tighter, more finer medias, like fine liner, like biro, that sort of thing. But if you haven't got paints at home during lockdown, which I know can be a bit of a pain in the backside, you might want to use anything that you can get your hands on, such as nail varnish. Maybe you got some varnish in the shed. Possibly you might have something else knocking around that might do the same trick. If you've got some food colourings and you haven't used it for all the sort of baking you've been doing in lockdown, why not get it out the cupboard and have a bit of swisheroo and do a bit of painting to see what you can get. These last couple of slides are just all about the Paisleys. This image is one of the help sheets that I give out to students for help with the Paisleys, that shows you examples, the types of detail, different thicknesses of line that I'm definitely after. And all of those different resources can be found on that art link that I've sent you out on Google Drive. The address is just floating across the screen right now. If you can't get through to it, email me and I'll make sure that you can do. This is another one of those help sheets, and this just shows an example in the bottom left there about how it all connects to more organic shapes. Those types of shapes that are floral, like leaves, like plants, like twigs, things like that. Anything that you could use to create a repeat design. And often, a lot of the time, Paisleys are used as well as in clothing, but as henna tattoos, things like that, mandalas. Maybe you could get inspired by those as well when you're making your own Pacey designs. This is the final slide there, and this is featuring an example from this year as well, and it's a really brilliant start, really clear link to the more natural side of Paisley, showing those leaf flowing shapes. The Pacey is often referred to as the Persian Pickle or the Persian Pear, something like that, and that gives it its teardrop kind of a shape. So really great shape, really good full use of space. The only one thing that I'd recommend that this student then does is if they think about the thicknesses, possibly as well as just using the fullness of space with line, what about changing the thicknesses of lines? In the white spaces that are left in between, why not use full tones that are added in there, like you can see in the two examples there that are on the right hand side of the slide, where you might tone in every other shape, alternate shape. So you leave one white, do one black. If one's more black in one area, you might have one more grey. And in the bottom right area there, as well as using those toned parts of the inside shapes to give a bit more variety, so it's not just thin lines and then white space, maybe think about using a little bit of shadow. If you've used biro, don't be afraid of using a pencil. You could do that to give yourself a bit of a mid-tone. And then the only other next steps that I've suggested there is they might want to think about doubling some of the lines, creating a full 3D effect. The good thing about these Paisley designs is, once you've got a few, we can create numerous copies when we get back into school after this lockdown malarkey is all over, and then we can then add those to your hexagon sheet in the volumes that you like. Like the origami, we could use spray paints, we could paint into copies, we can change them as much as you possibly can. But it's definitely that hexagon sheet guide that I need you to make sure that you've had a look at so you understand every different part of the hexagon sheet. If you've got any questions, like I say, please email me. I hope this video has been of some help to you guys. All the best, and hopefully hope to see you and hear from you soon. Bye for now.